Which type of property are you planning for your next trip and why? I just got back from the Conrad, Fort Lauderdale, and while I was there really enjoying my $22 cocktail, I started thinking about the difference between luxury properties and more budget-friendly options when it comes to certain trips. Obviously, we're in the points and miles game, so we're going to have the option to stay for free or at least heavily discounted. But the question remains, are there times when I would be completely satisfied in a property that likely costs half as many points than the 4 or 5-star alternatives? Well, in this video, I want to go over the pros and cons of both luxury and the more budget-friendly options we have for most of our travel destinations. We have so many choices these days and so many ways to earn points, but I still think there are times when frugality can be a virtue. If you are new here, I'm Luke from Luke's Points and Miles, and I talk about credit cards, points, miles, cashback, and travel. If you like those things, consider subscribing to the channel. And if at any time you get value out of this video, slap that like button for me and the YouTube algorithm. With the intro out of the way, let's get started. Like I said, we on Team Travel and Team Points and Miles have so many options in so many different ways to execute redemptions that sometimes we get lost down the rabbit hole towards the Ritz-Carltons and the Waldorf Astorias that we forget that there is a ton of value in some of these more budget-friendly properties. Now, before we get into this, obviously we'd all like to stay at the Four Seasons beachfront property compared to the Shady Sadies off the freeway. But sometimes it's just not that simple. The easiest example is where I just came back from. 3 nights at the Conrad, Fort Lauderdale is 285,000 Hilton points. But if I wanted to be frugal and save some points, I could have booked a room at the Bahia Mar, a DoubleTree property about a mile south, for 195,000 points. Now, obviously, that's not a jaw-dropping difference, but it could be the difference of another night on vacation or maybe a 25% savings. If you take a lot of trips, that could be substantial. But the point of this mental exercise is, would my experience be 25% less memorable? Both properties are in Fort Lauderdale, both have nice pools, and both have beach access. Now, obviously, there are plenty of differences, and you can look at the specific properties if you want to see those differences. The soft product is likely different as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'm willing to bet that some of you don't even care about some of these benefits. I'll keep it simple for this video, and I'll list the pros and cons of both types of properties with some of my experiences and opinions mixed in. Please comment below when you disagree with me or if you just want to throw in your 2 cents. We have so many folks with awesome experience in this community. We would all be interested in what you think. First off, some pros of booking luxury properties, since that's likely what a lot of us are in the game to do in the first place, right? Luxury properties are likely all about the destination. Trips that are full of relaxation and rejuvenation almost always include a luxury property. You want access to the best pools, the spas, and most convenient locations. You have to pay for that. Luxury properties are about the experience, and they will likely have a much better way to make you feel safe and secure. By that I mean they will keep the riffraff away from you. Luxury properties employ a larger and better trained security staff, and if they are really good at their job, you will likely never notice them. I always say that there are properties in the hotel industry and there are properties in the hospitality industry. Luxury hotels will have a much better trained staff that will absolutely ensure that guests are having the best experience possible. They make it so much easier to request things, and the service is noticeably better. And that sometimes leads to what I think of as a less rules apply philosophy. If you ever stay at a 5-star hotel, you aren't likely to hear the staff quote the policy or tell you no for reasonable requests. If you're staying at a $1,000 a night room, you probably aren't going to be rushed out of the rooftop pool at 10 p.m. Luxury hotels will have so many more amenities than their budget counterparts. Spas, guest services, fine dining. They will likely also have a great hard product with larger rooms, better beds, bigger TVs, and almost always a better view. Let's face it, you do get what you pay for. With all those advantages, can there be any benefits for staying at a more budget-friendly property? Sure there are. How about the obvious? It just requires less resources to book. Less points, certainly, but let's not forget that most likely everything will cost less. You probably won't see the $13 water bottles or the $200 dining options, so the total cost of the stay will likely be considerably less. One also needs to decide just how much time in the room they're going to need. Normally, I personally like to spend some time in the room relaxing or getting some work done, but in my most recent stay, we had an enormous suite and I don't remember doing anything besides showering and changing clothes in the room. So for this stay, I really didn't utilize the extra room. My buddy Dino wouldn't be in that room more than 5 minutes unless he's asleep. He'll be out adventuring. To go along with less resources required, you have to factor in that if you'd like to travel frequently, using less points means your earnings go much further. The example I used earlier was 25%, but there are several ways to turn that into a 50% savings if we wanted to sacrifice some other things that we may not even value for our stay. The final plus for budget stays, I'm not exactly sure about, but I did read that during busy travel times, like spring break, you are more likely to find availability in properties in that second or third tier, which also means that if you wanted to extend your stay, maybe you don't want to go back to work, you're more likely going to be able to stay put for a couple more days. I know the Conrad I just stayed in was booked up. There was no way I could have stayed there any longer. We talked about some advantages. How about some disadvantages of staying in each level? Some of these you can probably guess, but at luxury properties, let's face it, everything costs more. Sure, there are a lot of amenities that are included, and you probably aren't going to be nickel and dime to death, but I can tell you that at the Conrad, I paid $30 for a bottle of water and a chicken salad wrap at the little store next to the lobby. My banana split vodka poolside drink, 22 bucks. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. This is the experience that I wanted, but is it optimal every time? Probably not. These prime hotels also sell out quicker, especially if you're going during prime travel season, and that also leads to more competition for upgrades. We were not upgraded during our last stay, but I don't want to drift too far into that topic. It's not all sunshine and rainbows on the budget side either. Some properties will have issues. You are more likely to encounter small things like maybe a noisy part of the hotel, suboptimal plumbing, less hot water, and how do I put this delicately? A different type of traveler than what you might encounter at the higher end hotels. Your likelihood of sharing space with the loud, drunk, crazy folks increases exponentially. But hey, that might be something you like. The service in the budget class hotels is probably not going to be on par with higher end hotels. I never expect poor service, but you're not going to get the same kind of attention. When saving money, you'll likely forgo the prime location, and that could be a pretty big deal for some of us. So where do I stand on the spectrum? Well, I guess like most of these things, I'm all over the place. I will say that as I travel more, I want to save these Conrad and Waldorf trips for special occasions. I think our next South Florida trip could be at the Hilton Cabana, which is a bit more economical than the Conrad, and we normally have just as good of a time there. I mentioned in a previous video that with the addition of Hyatt into my stable, I plan to include more budget-friendly properties. My perfect example for that is when I take my son to football games. When we went to Dallas, we stayed at an Aloft by Marriott. Great property and much more affordable than these higher end places. I think this year we're going to Phoenix and Nashville for Bengals games. During those trips, I don't think I'm going to be searching out top tier properties. Clean and safe is the name of the game on these trips, and I really think I'm going to save the higher end luxury bookings for special occasions. Guys, tell me in the comments if you have co-branded hotel credit cards, and let me know what your preferred brand is. Also, if you are interested in hotel credit cards, or basically any credit cards for that matter, check out my new organized card link in the description. Using my links supports my channel, and I really appreciate that. Guys, this one went a little longer than expected, so if you've stayed around all the way to the end, I appreciate it, and I thank every single one of you.